Welcome back, and joining me now is Republican Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Senator Barrasso, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you back. Let's start with President Trump's escalating trade war. This week announcing that he may impose tariffs of up to 35% against Canada. Worth noting, in your home state of Wyoming, more than half of imports come from Canada. Canada supports about 13,000 jobs in Wyoming. Are President Trump's tariffs going to hurt Wyoming, Senator?
Well, the ranchers in Wyoming are very happy with what President Trump has done in terms of beef. I was at the Wyoming Fair last night, hearing lots of people very happy with this bill that we just passed. But remember, Republicans ran for office to make this country safer and more prosperous. And tariffs are just one part of our comprehensive economic plan to do that. So we're 6 months into this administration, and let's take a look at the things that voters are most concerned about. And we're in the right direction on all of those. Inflation is down. Gas prices are at the lowest in 4 years. What we've seen is the flow of illegal immigrants at the border has dropped to a trickle. We have passed and made permanent the largest tax cuts in American history. And American strength at home and abroad has been seen all around the world. So we have gotten America back on track. And, you know, the Democrats have been fighting us every step along the way, Kristen.
Well, Senator, let me ask you, and we are going to talk about the president's legislation that just passed, but in terms of these tariffs, you've seen the president make these threats in the past and then pull them back in some instances. Are you hoping that President Trump reverses course and pulls back on this threat of 35% tariffs against Canada, again, one of Wyoming's biggest trading partners?
Well, President Trump continues to put America first, America jobs, America wages, American workers, and this is what the Trump policy has been. When we use this tool, and he's using it very effectively, you take a look at what happened just the other night, the numbers coming out from the Treasury Department. We actually ran a surplus this past June, because first time in 8 years, because of tariff revenue coming in. When you add that to what we've done with the tax cuts and with letting people keep more of their own money, it makes a big difference in people's lives. I am amazed that people continue to underestimate President Trump's ability to negotiate good deals for America. He wants to get jobs back to this country. He wants to get wages up, and he's very good at bringing people to the table. Our ranchers are happy. Look, we are so dependent on China for so many things. We had just in Friday, the Secretary of Energy came to Wyoming, where we, for the first time in 70 years, opened a rare elements mine, rare minerals. China has a stranglehold on us for those important minerals. We did one in Wyoming. We need to get those good paying jobs here and make sure we're no longer dependent on all of these foreign policies around the country, around the world. Some of these people hold us hostage.
Let me ask you about the president's, what he has dubbed the big, beautiful bill. It's now officially the law of the land. My upcoming guest, Governor Andy Beshear, calls it, quote, the most destructive bill I've ever seen in my lifetime. He argues it's actually an attack against rural America. By some estimates, nearly 11 million people could lose Medicaid coverage. Some 68,000 people are covered by Medicaid in your state, Senator. What is your message to those in your state who may be worried about losing their Medicaid coverage?
Well, people in Wyoming know me as Wyoming's doctor. I practice medicine here and have taken care of more people on Medicaid and operated on them over my years of practice, more than all Democrats in Congress combined. And I know how important it is for us to strengthen Medicaid, which is what we did. Let me talk about that in a second. Let's talk about this bill itself. Largest tax cut in American history. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. These are things that are going to put money in people's pockets. We've done this, made these tax cuts permanent. That's $2,000 a year in tax savings for hardworking Americans. There's additional money for child tax credits. That's going to help working families. We do more to secure the border, to increase our military. And then, being from Wyoming, an energy state, We are an energy breadbasket for our country. We are going to be able to produce more American energy here, which is going to bring down the costs of heating your home, cooling your home, or gasoline even better. That is the contrast of what Republicans are doing. To your next guest, the governor of Kentucky, who wants to run for president, American people have rejected the last 4 years of high prices and open borders.
Well, look, hopefully he'll make that announcement here on the program, Senator. But let's stick to this issue of Medicaid because, look, President Trump promised repeatedly he was not going to cut Medicaid. Senator Tom Tillis is warning it's going to cost Republican seats in the midterms. Do you believe that this bill could cost Republican seats in the midterms over that promise the president made that he wasn't going to sign a bill that would cut Medicaid?
The more people hear about what's in this bill that's going to help them personally in their own lives, keep them safer as well as more prosperous, the more people we're going to want to support what the Republicans are doing. Let's talk about Medicaid for a second. And you talked about rural areas. So, look, I'm a doctor, practiced in Wyoming, rural and frontier medicine. In this bill, there's $50 billion set aside for rural hospitals to make sure that they can stay no longer in jeopardy, but give them the security that they need. Medicaid has become a magnet for waste, for fraud, for abuse, and even corruption. And during the votes on this bill, the Democrats said, nope, keep sending Medicaid to illegal immigrants. There are 1.2 million illegal immigrants on Medicaid right now. American people reject that. We have over 5 million people sitting at home who are able to work, who are on Medicaid and choose not to work.
Yeah.
Republicans believe there should be work requirements. Democrats voted nope, not even modest work requirements. If the Democrats were still in charge, everyone's taxes would be going up and we'd be less safe and less secure as a nation.
Senator, a couple things. 92% of people who are on Medicaid are either working or would qualify for an exemption. And it is worth just reminding people, folks who are here who are undocumented actually aren't eligible to receive Medicaid. So to that point, Democrats say they're gearing up to make this a centerpiece of their campaign. I do want to ask you something on foreign policy, though, because there's been a lot of focus.
Well, let me just point out there that there are still 1.2 million illegal immigrants on Medicaid because states have set up money laundering schemes to drain Medicaid to pay for illegal immigrants. And the study that you have talked about earlier about the 92%, that is the Kaiser Foundation, that has clearly been debunked. There are lots of people that ought to be working, and if they want Medicaid, they should be working.
Senator, 2 questions, 1 minute left, very quickly, on sanctions on Russia. Is it time to move forward with that sanctions bill against Russia?
I believe it is. I'm a co-sponsor in the United States Senate. It is the goal of that is to drain the Russian war machine of the money that they have coming in from selling oil to China and to India. That continues to fund that. We need to stand behind President Trump, who has been clear and consistent. He wants this war to end.
Very quickly, before I let you go, I have to ask you about this battle brewing in the world of MAGA. FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino apparently feuding with Attorney General Pam Bondi over her handling of the files related to accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Let me just ask you, big picture, do you have confidence in Attorney General Pam Bondi?
I do. We ran to make this country safer and more prosperous. Pam Bondi and her team are getting hardened criminals off the streets. America is safer with Pam Bondi as Attorney General.
And do you have faith in Kash Patel, the FBI director?
I do.
Okay. There you have it. Senator Barrasso, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.